Just for basics here, why does a president like low rates?
Well, low rates are good for the government because the government's the biggest borrower, but they care about home mortgages, they care about car loans, student loans, commercial loans. Low interest rates are good for borrowers. That's good for the U.S. economy. That's good for whoever's in power politically. Having low interest rates is a luxury. It's great. The trouble is, if you put interest rates too low when there's inflation pressures, it makes the price pressures go up more and get out of control. And so that's the balance that the central bank's trying to have. The central bank can control inflation, but it can't necessarily choose where the market's going to think the interest rate needs to be consistent with that. So, I mean, the whole world looks at the Federal Reserve and they think, they're setting the interest rate. My car loan, everything, it's done by the Federal Reserve. That's a gross misconception. The Federal Reserve, on the whole, most central banks are trying to keep prices stable. I don't always do a great job, okay? It's very hard to do, but that's what they're trying to do. And that means they have to ask themselves the question, well, if we want to keep prices stable, is the interest rate too high or too low? And so that's what they're feeling out. And the president typically is short-term, that short-term interest rate, what's happening right now, that's what they want to deliver. And often cutting the interest rate does deliver growth in the short run. The trouble is, as inflation ratchets up, the longer-term interest rates ratchets up, all the interest rates get sucked up, and you're sort of, like running on a wheel, trying to stand still.
Is it fair to say that the Fed has the single most powerful tool in the economy?
Absolutely. Controlling the short-term interest rate is the most powerful tool not available to Congress. Congress has a lot of tools, but they don't have the surgical ability to change it in the way the Fed has. The Fed has one job, basically, which is to make sure prices stay stable. I want to back up and mention that we didn't always live in this world. We used to have the dollar pegged to gold, and a lot of people think that's wonderful. We should go back to it. It's not easy to do, is all I'll say. Like, countries tried it and didn't. But we had that at some level until 1971, when Nixon went off gold, and he just cut the dollar loose. And part of the reason we had the inflation in the 1970s, which a lot of people think was because oil prices went up. No. It's because we didn't know what to do. We didn't have any vision of how to control inflation. It's a modern construct. The whole idea of having an independent central banks is new. That people really didn't understand the importance of it. And it took, I'd say, 15 years before we really figured it out. And it's worked really well, but the problem is that it's worked so well, people forget it's necessary. I back up with a joke that kind of captures this. There's this man, looking for a parking space because he wants to go to pray at his church, and he looks up and says, God, if you'll just give me a parking space, I'll promise I'll start coming regularly, I'll be more devout, I'll be better. And suddenly a parking space opens up and he pulls right in. And then he looks up and says, just kidding, And I think that's been like that with central bank independence and inflation, where it came down and everybody, not just Trump, I would also say the progressives, people all over the world, have forgotten how we got there. And if you take away central bank independence, you're not going to get inflation overnight, by the way. It takes time, but it certainly will contribute in a big way towards the next high inflation period we get.
What is the cautionary tale? I mean, you mentioned the inflation of the 70s, but of the central bank succumbing to political aims. So, for instance, the Burns and Nixon example.